All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want today's podcast to be called is Discover the Potential in Yourself. And sometimes when I do these podcasts, I think I don't want to think people like I'm coming off as a know-it-all, because the one thing I think regarding my podcast or anything that I speak of is all the mistakes I've made along the way and still continuously keep making. And I just want people to know that a lot of stuff I also say, I change my mind as well as time goes on, like everyone else. So what I say isn't set always in stone, but a lot of what I say are things that I went through throughout my life. And I've been doing a lot of videos on fitness on my YouTube video, more than anything. Different things related to fitness, people's true potential when it comes to discovering their genetics. And I was just putting up a video on genetics, that people never realized what their true genetics are. And I also think people really don't realize a lot of times what their true potential is. I think one of the reasons is we're lazy, or we're scared, or we don't want to take time to develop it, a certain type of skill. Because I think, especially in this day and age, people want things very quickly. But for instance, when it comes to genetics, it may not take months, even years. It may take decades to truly see what your genetic gifts are. Because a lot of times when we do certain things, it may not be the right thing. And I even did a video on weightlifting regarding, a lot of people may not like weightlifting, for instance, or may not get results out of it. That doesn't mean that they can't get fit or in great shape or discover something else that will give them, what they're looking for as far as, their fitness or what they're trying to get out of their life regarding fitness, I should say. But regarding potential now, I don't think most people really realize all the potential they have. Because I think, too, they carry a lot of baggage from their past. And I could relate to that. I always felt stupid. A lot of times I still do. And, I was just always distracted. And I was so self-centered a lot of times that if I wasn't interested in something, I would just dismiss it. I wasn't a very good student at all. I was less than average. And not that I'm some guru at anything at this point in time. But the one thing I'm pretty decent at is being consistent. And once I kind of set my mind on something, I goof around and say the world could blow up. I'm just going to keep kind of moving forward toward my goal or toward whatever I want to get accomplished. The only problem with that, a lot of times, I underestimate a lot of times how much time and effort it takes to accomplish what I want to accomplish. Also, a lot of times what I realized, how much money it takes too. Along with like building a team to help me do it. But if you're somebody out there who wants to create something and you're kind of afraid, or you want to start getting in better shape, I'll just use that for example, or you want to maybe become a nurse hypothetically, or you want to get a degree, I think a lot of times we look at things and go, holy shit, that's going to take a long ass time, and a lot of work. And the truth is, it probably is. But, if you start, you'd be shocked that momentum starts to build up. And it starts to go forward. It's kind of like when you start high school, I said. And you're like, Jesus, you got another 4 years of this? And before you know it, you're like a junior. And then before you know it, you're graduating. You're like, where the hell did those 4 years go? 4 years isn't that long. It really isn't. If you look at the grand scheme of things, as far as if you plan on living, to 80 years old, 4 years is a joke, from a numbers perspective. And, it could be anything you're wanting to do. I don't care if you want to build a shed in your backyard. I get, that's not my thing, but, if you've never done it before, sure, it's going to take you a lot longer than a carpenter, obviously. You're going to make a ton of mistakes along the way, and it's going to be very frustrating. But what you learn when you go kind of do something like that, or test yourself, you kind of understand who you are. And I think you also have a way of understanding what other people go through or what their gifts are. I grew up in I always talk about a nightclub, kind of industry with my father, but I also grew up around a lot of painters and kind of being involved, I guess you could say, with construction. Not me, but some of my family members would, they were involved with drywall, still are. My stepfather was in construction, building homes in a very wealthy area of Oak Brook, Illinois. I don't know if you know where that's at, but I used to go help him sometimes. And what they would do in a day absolutely amazed me. And I couldn't even, they were just they would build walls, what the bricklayers were doing, what these guys were accomplishing. And I used to think back, and I remember one time, it's one carpenter guy I know, and we were talking about something. And we were talking about exactly what I'm talking about, like how construction workers, how some of these guys are just unbelievable at what they do. And he's a construction worker, and then he once went and worked with this Irish guy. And he was describing to me what this guy did in one day. And he's a legit carpenter. He said this guy was doing things that were just so incredible. He couldn't believe it. And he went and talked to him about it and says, how do you do what you do at the speed you're doing and at the accuracy? And his line basically was, not all men are equal at the end of the day. And I'll never forget that. You think about that. All men have different type of skill levels. This guy was at a much higher skill level that he's ever seen. And it kind of reminds me in the movie Gladiator when he walks up, I think, to Colosseum, and they look up and they're like, he didn't know men can create such incredible things. I think a lot of us have the potential to do a lot of incredible things. We just don't realize it. But I'm here to tell you, if you are truly interested in something that you want to do, even if you start off very small, I talk about it all the time, not rushing into things, taking your time, kind of studying. Because the other thing is, too, a lot of people talk a lot of shit, and they convince themselves that they missed their calling. I have people all the time, especially in the entertainment industry, that either quit or never went and acted or never went and did this and that. I missed my calling. I should have did this. I should have did that. Oh, my God. That's all I hear about a lot of times. But if their heart wasn't in it, they weren't going to do it. It's easy in hindsight to say that was your calling and this and that. But also, I think a lot of people, like, let's just say dance or acting or whatever, you didn't go do it because you may have also not had the skill set to do it. Then again, you might have. But you had to also understand that that's something that some people have that natural ability, but for the most part, it's going to take training. And a lot of people, again, are too lazy to do that. Don't fall in that category. And the one thing, too, I realize when you do go after something a lot of times that you think you should be doing, like say I made a couple movies. After a while, I was like, you know what, I don't want to go through this anymore. Maybe later down the road, I wouldn't mind revisiting it. But I exhausted myself after doing a couple films and helping some others, people with some others, along with reading hundreds of scripts. And I went too hard, I think, into it. Which, that could be something that happens to people too. Like, they have certain potential, and it's almost like going to work out too. You want to start working out, and then when you go there, you get a trainer and you burn yourself out. You get exhausted. Instead of making it fun, you kind of make it horrific. Instead of building into something and learning about it and enjoying it along the way, you kind of, what I call, you dive in head first and there's no water in the damn pool, and you just crash. And I think I kind of crashed for a while there, because doing back-to-back feature films and taking all that on, even though I love doing it, and I'm very happy, I look back at what I went through. I don't know how I had the energy to do it, but I did it. But I do realize that, say I never did that, I probably would have been one of those guys like, man, I should have always, made a movie, or I blew up my potential, or I know my creativity, I could have made an incredible movie, or I could have did this or that. When I went and did it, I have so much more respect for people that do that. It's a craft that's really, it's magical. And some people could, make one film and it's incredible. Some people may make 20 and never, get any notoriety. But it's the journey along the way, I believe, a lot of times too in life. And if you believe in your potential, what I think happens is when you go after something, you're going to also start engulfing yourself or meeting other people that have the same interest that you have. And I think that's the one thing, if I could take anything back from making films was all the wonderful people I met while going through the process, and all of us coming together and doing what they did was just absolutely amazing. And, you know, I'm going to move. It's getting a little loud over here. I don't know what's going on outside. So, yeah, if you are somebody, I'm just going to say this, if you're somebody that has something you want to do in your life, don't let others make you feel stupid or that you don't have talent or that you can't get certain things done, because you can. The reality is you may not be able to do it as quickly as others. You may not be as talented as others. Just a reality. But don't think in time you can't get to the level that other people are at. All right? So I just wanted to do a quick podcast on that. Please pay attention to that, because I think a lot of us grew up thinking a lot of things that you may have wanted to do or go after, you just didn't have the skill set, and you probably don't. That does not mean you can't learn it. I'm telling you. And then there are things where people just can blow you away in life and do things that you can't do. But then again, you got to realize you may be able to do a lot of things that you can blow others away. You just, a lot of people don't look at that way. And I just thought I would do a quick podcast. I don't always want to do super long podcasts. Sometimes I just want to get to the point. And I just thought I would do one on that subject. So if you get a chance, you might definitely want to check out my YouTube, especially if you're looking to gain muscle, lose weight. And I don't just show videos on how to work out. I talk through a lot of different things regarding what I think people go through when wanting to work out, or what they're going to go through, or things they went through in their past. I also go through trying to prevent injuries and all these different types of things as well. So that might be something you might want to check out. I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. And that's it. Leave a comment. But please don't underestimate your skill set. And I am going to wrap it up here. A lot of times, depending on the surroundings that you were kind of born into, like, don't get lost in that. I grew up basically in a very Italian culture. And then I ended up going to a Catholic high school. And I always loved the arts. The problem was all the schools I went to, or the environment I grew up was Italian, Christian, Catholic. So I was really engulfed with religion. Even my mother worked for the archdiocese. Then my father was in the nightclub industry. But I did have an aunt who was married into our family. And she used to cut hair for the studios. Her brother owned the studio in Chicago. And I was always fascinated and wanted to make movies. And just by having her and being able to talk to her was wonderful. But a lot of times the environments we're born into, we feel like we have to follow in those exact, that exact lifestyle, which I was one of those. I also was around a lot of Italians that liked to gamble, and I did like to gamble and collect money and do all these crazy things. But I also knew there were other things that I wanted to do. And I had to break out of that. And people thought I was crazy. Even when I moved to Florida, I have hundreds of cousins, massive family, and I think I was the first family member to ever leave Chicago. And it wasn't their fault, but they were all very upset with me. It almost reminded me of when, I presume, my grandfathers all left Italy. Even though I wasn't leaving the country, but you leave your family, and they don't know why. Almost feels like betrayal. But I wanted to live in a warmer climate, and I wanted to live a different lifestyle than the one I was leading in Chicago. I also wanted to see what my potential was outside of Chicago. I always had Chicago, and I always came back and forth to Chicago. I'm actually in Chicago today, of all things. But sometimes you have to break out of the environment that you're in to find your true potential, because you've kind of been, programmed to be a certain type of person, I think, a lot of times. And a lot of times we're afraid to change our identity or go somewhere else where people are doing what we're doing, because we're afraid of the loss. Or we may be afraid we're leaving others behind, which could be the case. But I'm here to tell you, if you do hypothetically want to make a movie, you're most likely going to have to go to LA. Just saying, most likely. Not necessarily. You can make a movie anywhere, but you want to start making connections and deal with a lot of different people in that industry to make it a career. It's going to probably be a lot easier going there. If you want to do theater, you also have New York. You can do Chicago. I think Cleveland's doing really well. There's always California. I'm just using that for example. You want to be a tech guy, obviously you might want to get to the West Coast where it's booming, the tech industry. Whatever you want to do, you might really consider surrounding yourself and engulfing yourself in it. Because then not only do you start to discover your potential, you start to feed off others people's as well and learn from them. And I think the biggest component in life to grow is learning from others. You can only teach yourself so much to a certain degree by reading and even doing certain things. But people that are really at a much higher level can save you a lot of time if you just learn from them, right? And it doesn't necessarily always have to be a university, that's great too. You want to go to a certain university, but try to get around people that are doing something really similar. The familiarity is sometimes the key. So if you want to build, hypothetically, whatever you want to build, you don't want to kind of half-ass it, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of people do that. And be very specific. If you want to be a bricklayer, don't go hang out with drywall guys. I'm just using that for an example. You want to do, if you want to be an architect, go be a damn architect. Don't go be something local construction. And not that that's bad, but if you truly want to do that, go to school, learn it, try to be around the best people that you can to teach you and really help you discover your full potential. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Take care, and if you're traveling, safe travels.